And there we are. This is welcome to the Cathedral Park Performing Arts Collective's No Mic Open Mic Night. Who wants to do something tonight? Who wants to? Okay, great. And I also will. Does anybody want to go first? Okay, Christopher.
Okay, yeah, I can read something here. I think I'm going to start with one that's called Daffodils. I wrote this one when we were living in North Carolina. All right, so Daffodils. I watched the fireflies slow dance drunkenly through the trees and over the stones just before dusk, and I caught one in my hands. Unperturbed, the lightning bug explored the creases of my palms and fingers, its temporary habitat. But sensing an unfamiliar environment, it didn't light a signal. I considered how brave, how independent. This creature, captured by another several hundred times bigger than itself, displaying such a selfless act of curiosity. Or maybe it's a simpler urge than that. Maybe it's just that calm acceptance is sometimes the best path to survival. I lowered my arm and opened my hand near a gravestone, and the insect glided away, sending out its tail in slow motion Morse code indiscriminately to the hushed hurly-burly and the quiet commotion of the quickly graying evening. I threaded my way around the patches of dark earth, careful not to tread on any final resting places, careful not to trip on any of the rough-hewn markers, trying to catch up to my companion who was already at the far edge of this city of sleeping souls. I saw her stoop and brush her hands lightly across a swatch of daffodils that caught the final fading gleam of the setting sun, as though a spotlight was sweeping languidly over them. She moved her hand so gently across the golden host, as though over the face of a loved one, or over the eyes of the newly departed, and her fingers were met with a stirring and soft efflorescent rustle of blooms in return. She rose slowly and looked back at me. "Let's make a garden," she smiled, "a sea of yellow petals in the yard." I nodded, and she took me by the hand and led me through the rusted iron gate and back out onto the street. I glanced over my shoulder at the scarce fireflies still blinking to one another in the pale streetlights as we went. And when I turned back, she put a dark green stem adorned with a burst of gold into my shirt pocket and gave me a kiss. And that night I dreamt of soaring through a night sky lit by a million fireflies in place of stars.
Nice, thank you, Christopher. The fireflies and the daffodils and the graveyard. That was really wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks.
I think that's one of my favorite of the things that you've read here.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. I have a couple other things, but I'll let someone else go, and then I'll do another turn later, if that's okay.
We can just take turns as we go around.
Okay, sounds good.
How about you, Jonathan or Vicky? Does either one of you want to go next?
I'll go.
Okay.
My kid called me on the phone. This was at the height of the pandemic. And they said, "Mom, I've been reading that sleep apnea is a pre-existing condition for severe COVID." And I said, "Okay. Mom, you should get tested. Remember that time we were on that camping trip? There was that little boy in the tent next to ours. Remember how he woke up in the middle of the night, heard you snoring, thought you were a bear?" "Ah, yes, that was hilarious. Mom, people who snore like you do can have sleep apnea and die." Okay. So I called up my doctor and I got a referral. I made an appointment for the test. My kid worried. My kid was 24. It was just the two of us. Their father died when they were 14. So they were afraid they could lose me too. But as the day approached for that appointment, that test, I found myself looking forward to it. I mean, I hadn't gone anywhere during the pandemic. I thought this would be like little vacay. And I was thinking, spa vibes, like little private rooms and long white bathrobes for all of us and fluffy slippers. We would all gather in the common room, get to know each other. I had felt so alone. And then the techs would come in, right, with their white doctor coats and they'd serve us tea or hot toddies. And then we'd go off to our little rooms and I would have packed some appropriate reading material like, Raymond Chandler's The Big Sleep. In the morning, breakfast bar, croissants, lattes. So on the big night, I headed for my 9 p.m. appointment. I was driving around looking for the dress in Van Nuys. I passed strip joints and liquor stores. I turned onto a dark, narrow street. And there was a tall, dark office building. Place looked abandoned. I pulled into the parking garage. One car. I took the elevator up to the 3rd floor, a long vacant hallway. No signs for businesses on the doors. At the very end of the hall, number 342, it said the sleep center in teeny tiny letters. I pushed open the door. One man sat in a swivel chair, his back to me. He was facing a console of video screens. I thought of that horror movie, Cabin in the Woods, where the techs monitor their victims in the rooms of the cabin on video screens before sending zombies out to kill them. The man spun around. He sprang to his feet. He was so short. He had iron gray hair, crew cut. He was built like a little bantamweight wrestler. He wore Levi's with a sharp crease. He wore a crisp navy blue shirt buttoned to the neck. He wore a black mask, as did I. I'm Paul. Paperwork? I reached into my tote bag and I took out my completed forms and I handed them to Paul. Let's get started. You get right to it. I used to be in the military. I followed Paul along a wide, shabby hallway, worn carpeting, dingy walls, and I saw immediately, we were the only 2 people in the place. There weren't any other techs. There were no other patients. There were doors open along this hallway, and I saw identical rooms. Each one had a humongous bed and a flat screen TV. This place did not look like a medical establishment. Okay, this was like a bunch of rooms that probably used to be crammed with desks for some fly-by-night substandard insurance company or some scammy import-export LLC. Every television was airing the same episode of the old TV show, Gomer Pyle. It's been a long time since I've seen that show. We set all the televisions to the station airs Gomer Pyle, Green Acres, Gilligan's Island. Why? Patients find the show soothing. But all those actors are dead. No one thinks that. Here you go. And here was my room. Same bed, TV, Gomer Pyle. But next to my bed, there was a cart with racks of wires and gadgets. Was this a scam? I mean, like anybody could just, rent some rooms and put up some beds and TVs and pack up, disappear without a trace if things went south. Have a seat, said Paul. Yes, I could have left right then. I could have made some excuse. I thought, my doctor wouldn't refer me to some fake sleep testing center, would he? Was he in on it? I put my tote bag on the nightstand. I sat down on the edge of the bed. Paul asked me to remove my mask. He put on latex gloves, and then he put this white goop on my face and on my scalp. He put on suction cups, electrodes. He put a strap around my chest, wires around my ankles, a clip on my finger, and the whole time he rattled off medical terms that had to do with breathing, heart rate, brain waves. Why'd you get into this line of work, Paul? The money. You don't mind working nights? Not at all. I don't like people. Now, if you gasp for air 9 times, I come in with the CPAP. That would be a mask and machine to open your airwaves. If you need to use the restroom, press the white button on the bedside table. I come in, disconnect the wires. He went over to the door. He turned off the television. He said, "Lights out." He turned off the light. I lay back. I was so uncomfortable. All these wires and gadgets, the clip on my finger glowed red. There was a teeny tiny green light flashing up near the ceiling. The camera, I assumed. Paul was watching me. No wonder in the instruction packet it said remain fully clothed. So I was wearing a t-shirt and sweats. I thought I had to go to the bathroom. I didn't want to press that white button for Paul, make him come and disconnect everything. I fidgeted, my skin crawled, my feet tingled. I checked the time on my phone every 15 minutes. I could feel every suction cup on my head. Were they pulsing? What kind of information was Paul gathering as he read my brainwaves? What kind of person took a job like this anyway? Control freak? Voyeur? Or worse? When Paul said he didn't like people, what did he mean by that? He said he was in the military. What did he do, kill people? Well, why did he really set all the televisions a Gomer pile? Was he sitting there at the console watching me jerking off as Jim neighbors laughed in the background? Were there dials on these electrodes? Could Paul crank up the current coursing through my body? Even a tiny jolt of electricity could be fatal. Was Paul going to throw my body in the building incinerator? Have somebody push my car off a cliff to throw the cops off the track? I'm just going to press the white button for Paul. I'm going to do that. I'm just going to press the button and I will mumble some lame excuse and then I will get the hell out of here. I'm going to press the button like any second. Any second. What was stopping me? I knew what it was. My entire life, I had deferred to authority. I had followed the rules. My first job, I was a cashier in a diner, also in charge of takeout. And one day there were two people waiting for their orders, a woman for a sandwich and a man for toast. And the woman's sandwich came and she took it away to her office in the building next door. That man's toast never came. And finally, my boss, Tina, 4'11" in heels, stormed out of the kitchen and said, "Vicky, the toast was in with the sandwich. Go get the toast." I ran after toast. I let Tina completely humiliate me. I thought, can Paul see my tears? I started awake. I must have been asleep for a moment. I need to live. I need to be there for my kid. I am not going to let Paul get away with his dastardly fuckery. He is not going to throw me in an incinerator. I pressed the white button. Moments later, there he was at the door. He turned on the light. I said, "I'm done. I have enough information to make the assessment." What? Was I asleep? What time is it? 4:39 a.m. I thought it was only, Paul, do I have sleep apnea? Did I come in with the CPAP? No. Well then. He undid all the wires and I drove home. I went into my kitchen, sat down at the table, and I thought, my kids could be so happy. I took the test. I don't have sleep apnea. Or maybe I did have it. Maybe I never slept. Maybe the whole thing was bogus. So what? For the first time in my life, whether the danger was real or imaginary, I pressed the escape button. I closed my eyes. I put my head down on the table. I slept for 12 hours straight.
That's
You've definitely ruined my fantasy about having to go to a sleep lab. I can't think of a medical procedure that sounds more right up my alley, than sleeping for the cause. Sounds perfect until your story.
Yeah. The different voices are terrific, and the details. Love it. I have done a sleep lab myself, and so it wasn't fun. No, I'm a night person, and the thing is, they made me go to bed at 8 p.m. and get up like in what was for me the middle of the night. So. No. Anyway, thank you, Vicky. How about you, Jonathan? Are you ready?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm not going to take necessarily any inspiration. I don't think from any of the stories. I know that's always been my comment. As I realize the first person that goes kind of gets to set the tone, but I'm just going to go with what I set up. But sort of, there's a song that Somewhat, it's a little bit in anticipation of Earth Day coming up. There are parts of this that are based on my real life, but the rest of it's just, it's called Wrath of Mother. I grew up with lots of brothers. We were tight but pressed each other. With all our pranks, one thing was clear. We could not put a thing past Mother dear. We disobeyed as she would hover. She told us frank and we discovered what we faced if we did not adhere. How we must atone if we ignore Mother dear. Some are born in ash, some in clover, some are born in ash, some are born in ash, some in butter, some make it at last beyond the gutter, but each will see as they disappear. Just one guarantee from Mother dear. Yeah, Mother is a metaphor. Mother is a fact. If you're in the wrong, she will react. You can wish thou that she forgave, will always be the case. Nothing that you do, you'll have to face. Here's the caution, tell it to each other. She gives birth and you will die. You can count on Mother. I hear folks say they'll soon recover. They won't lose as others suffer. Think they're free of the tune of the spheres. They'll learn the truth from Mother dear. One man pulls us in, one's a shover. Think they won't lose as others suffer. Oh, crap. You know what? I can't read this without my glasses. I'm sorry. Try to do it. I'm going to just pull my way through it. One man pulls us in, one's a shover. One lives in thorns, one deep in clover. Out of till won't last long, do not fear. Imbalance will not last with Mother dear. Earth's beauty makes one heart's flutter, though it can storm and quake and shudder. From nurture to the unwiped tear. We see all moods from our Mother dear. Yeah, Mother is a metaphor. Mother is a fact. If you're in the wrong, she will react. You can wish all that she forgave, will always be the case. Nothing that you do, you'll have to face. Here is the caution, tell it to each other. She gives birth and you will die. You can count on Mother. Sorry, a little rough, but got through it. Thank you.
Yeah, we do. We definitely do works in progress here. So uh, I realized that that wasn't really so much a work in progress as that you needed your glasses. How come you don't just wear your glasses, honey? You're muted. You're muted.
I need to have what I set up to read at a distance a little close for the glasses to work. So it was kind of like, oh, I really set myself up for that one. But
Oh
thank you for your
yeah, yeah.
patience.
But in any case, it's certainly not a problem. We do works in progress and stuff like that. So that's just
I,
fine. I
I
liked Mother Dear.
well, I, I like the turnaround of that too. But anyway, I'll print it bigger next time.
I see Vicky's cat was that's wonderful, pretty cat. Okay, so I think it's me now, and I have to apologize in advance because I'm going to take us in a dark direction, and that's just the way it is right now. So I'm going to start out by saying that it's been a while that I haven't been at open mics, and it's that things happened and I just couldn't do it. So anyway, this is a story called Sanctuary. My son Ezra came to us in 1985, a baby with fetal alcohol syndrome, though I had never heard the term and had no idea there was such a thing. He took so much of me, I had just barely enough left for his sister, Lily, and nothing for anything else. Ezra was ethnically some kind of Pacific Islander. He had intense dark eyes and his ears stuck out, comical, endearing. He was huge and his affection left bruises. He had enormous feelings that he couldn't begin to handle and was desperate for love and care. This is the kind of child he was. When he found out that there were people with no home at age 4, he dropped bonelessly to the floor and wailed, "No bed! No bed! Bed!" Wept for hours and nothing would comfort him. We finally had to take the covers off of his bed and go out and give them to homeless people we found sleeping in doorways. For most of his childhood, he gave his allowance away to homeless and hungry people. But his joy, too, was huge. Ezra wasn't quite normal mentally, but he loved with a frightening intensity. He didn't like to be alone. He was afraid of the dark. He loved his mama. And when I got married, he loved Martha. Once the three of us walked on the beach on a gray day, and he listed for us all of his problems: school, being in special ed, people teasing him for his gay parents, a girl he liked and the way she mocked him, how hard it was for him just to live his life. At the end, he complained, "And I have 2 mothers, and both of them are lesbians." You can imagine how we didn't laugh then, but we smiled. When Ezra was 13, he was still huge. He towered over all of us. His bar mitzvah speech was about the city of refuge in the Bible, a sanctuary city where you could go and live safely if blood was on your head. Ezra explained, speaking to the congregation from the Bema, that the city of refuge was better than the relatives on each side killing each other back and forth until everyone was dead. But, he said, it was too harsh. Think about it, he said. You could never go home. He stopped and looked out at all of us for a moment. You could never go home. They needed to think of something better. He had said what he came to say. He turned and stepped down from the bema. Ezra, as it turned out, spent most of his adult life homeless. He was an addict and he deteriorated mentally over the years. He tried again and again to get clean and sober, but his periods of sobriety became shorter, the times between longer. Sometimes he was in one institution or another, and then the time came that he dropped through a gap in the system and there was nowhere else for him to go. However lost he was, wherever he was, he called me every day or two until he lost the ability to make phone calls. And then he came over and knocked on our door every couple of days and stood on the porch with his shoulders hunched and his hands in his pockets. If we were out when he came, he would leave little presents on the doorstep, a special penny, a bracelet he had found in the street, a rock. About 2 years ago, a year into the pandemic, at age 35, he told me he was giving up. "I'm not going to try anymore," he said. "I'm done." He still loved his mamas, both of whom were still lesbians. The last time I saw Ezra was on December 22nd. I know when it was because we were expecting record cold temperatures that night. I normally didn't give him advice, but I was terribly worried that he would freeze because he lived outdoors and had no way of understanding what was coming. I told him he needed to be inside that night, that it would be colder than he had ever been in his life. I admit I nagged him that evening. He said no, he'd be fine. There was never any point in arguing with him. He said, "I love you" to both of us and left. I watched his large frame disappear behind parked cars down the street. After a week or two, Martha and I were worried enough to go looking. We checked the shelters, camps, and soup kitchens. We put up flyers and asked homeless outreach people to watch for him. Everybody was very kind, even the police, when I called asking if they had encountered him. Ezra had once given me an address where he slept sometimes, so we went and looked there, but it was a terrible place. The burnt out ruins of a house on a dead-end street, nothing but stinking burnt rubble and a lot of broken glass. I called his name and waited, but there was nothing. Just in case, I wrote a note telling him to find a phone and call his mama. I added the phone number because I thought he might have forgotten it, and pinned the note to what was left of a blackened doorway still standing in the debris. We kept looking. I got a call from the medical examiner on February 12th. They had found a body. They knew to call me because they had found my note. A medical examiner can tell a lot about a death from the body and the scene where it was found. He had probably died that night after the last time we saw him. It wasn't suicide. Drugs on the street are just very unpredictable. He might not even have known it was fentanyl. The whole time we were looking for him, he was already dead. He stood on the porch that last day and said, "I love you" to his two mothers. Then he walked and walked as he usually did, but it got cold, colder than he thought possible. He hustled some junk to take himself out of that cold and went to his place of refuge and crawled through the burnt rubble and broken glass until he was sheltered under a fallen wall and shot up and waited alone in the cold and the dark and drifted off to sleep. That's all.
So sorry
Yeah.
for that difficult time. Very, very, very tough.
Yeah. So that's what what's been going on in my life. Anyway, I don't usually try and go in such a dark direction, but
There's no way to tell that story, I don't think.
Yeah.
And you just, and sadly not, you're not, it's a story that is unfortunately repeated too often.
Yeah. There's a lot of him out on the street. It's just every one of them is him. Every one of them is my kid. Every one of them had people that loved them.
Thank you for sharing that with us and being, open, and it means a lot to be able to hear that story and get that from you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was very therapeutic to write. Anyway, okay, so so does anybody want to go around again? What do you think, Christopher? You got another one or no?
Got another one in the bag, Christopher. I've got.
Yeah. Okay, this is actually, I'm going to read. I'm just going to read. This is not original. I'm going to read a very short poem here. When we were in Paris, we went to Shakespeare and Company. I don't know if you guys have been there. Have you guys been to Paris and been to Shakespeare and Company? It's a bookstore that Hemingway and Fitzgerald and these writers used to hang out at way back in the heyday of Paris or whatever. And I'd been there before in the 90s, and then we went just again when we were there a few weeks ago, and Michelle bought me this little book of poems. I'm going to read this one. It's called it's by Arthur Rimbaud. I don't think I'm saying his name right. He's a very famous French poet. Is it Rimbaud? I don't think I've actually ever said it out loud. I've read, I've seen his name a million times, but anyway, that's his name.
Rambo.
Yeah.
Rambo. Okay. Not Rambo like Sylvester Stallone, but Rimbaud. Yeah. Okay. It's so short here, but this poem really struck me. It's so beautiful, I think. Anyway, it's called Song of the Highest Tower. Give me 1 second, because it's a really powerful poem. Song of the Highest Tower. May it come, may it come. The time when love astounds us. I have kept so patient that forever I forget fears and suffering to the heavens have risen, and the degenerate thirst darkens my veins. May it come, the time when love astounds us, like the meadow left unattended, overgrown, florid with fragrance and rye, amid the harsh hum of dirty flies. May it come, the time when love astounds us. I just think it's so moving and beautiful.
I love it. I've never heard that one. So what do you think, Jonathan? You have a song?
I was just sort of now I am going to allow what's preceded me to influence what the next one I do, and I just looking for something I think I've done this one before in open mic, but it's a It's a little more upbeat and hopeful. So, uh, I don't really have a name for this one, actually. I have a whole series of songs that I started writing when I was really determined to sit down and start trying to write songs, and they all seemed kind of preachy to me. So I started calling them sermons and numbering them. This is I call folk sermon number 4. Well, I'm sure it's true. It's a funny old world. Some folks are nuts, others are squirrels. Some folks go hungry and they feed pigs pearls. It just goes on and on. We can all be happy, be bright and real, be okay, whatever the deal. Enjoy our apple without the peel. Just keep playing it through. Let's all play it through. I knew a guy so tight where the moon shines dark. When he'd walk, he'd make a spark. When he'd fart, the dogs would bark. He just didn't understand. Better to leave time to dance. Life is better with room for chance. Nobody ever listens to rants unless they bring a little smile. So let's everybody smile. I knew a woman walked around with her head in her hands, ran into walls again and again. She swore it was her destiny's plan, she just didn't get the point. Open your eyes, look around. We all know about the tears of the clown, but your fate's not written down. You hold it in your hands. Let's all hold hands. Every baby born is in on the joke. They see clear through all the smoke. Life is good, go for broke, but we each have a little chore. Learn to play, stay alert, help each other, no one gets hurt. Hold each other for all we're worth. Spread your joy around, yeah, spread a little joy around. Learn to play, stay alert, help each other, no one gets hurt. Hold each other for all we're worth. Spread your happiness around. Yeah, spread a little happiness around. Some of these I don't practice before I come out, so I go, oh yeah, there was that lick in there that I forgot all about, but hopefully it all came together in a little bit of a way.
It was good, Jonathan. It was good. We like it. Thank you. Okay, so what do you think, Vicki? Do you have something else to do or no? Okay.
That's all I have for today. I'm getting ready for a live show in a few days.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. Love it. I'm glad you're going to do that.
And I hope,
the thing that's funny.
I was just going to say, I hope you will be telling that story of yours. You should tell that a lot of places. It's an important story.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. You know, when you were telling your story, I was wondering if you did live shows, something it seemed like you would. So yeah. Well, that's great. Well, okay, so I have another story. This is a very different kind of a story, small little story. And much more lighthearted, and it's about being young, and it's from when I was young and about to come out is what it was. But okay, so this is called Saturday Nights. When I was 20, I had a job in a crisis center in Santa Cruz, California. This was 1973 or 74. I had kind of bonded with my coworker, Daisy Leong. She and I worked the Saturday night shift on the crisis line because none of the volunteers would do it. Saturdays tended to be hours of nothing happening, and then suddenly the lines would erupt with drama, police, ambulances, threats of violence, desperate voices begging for help. But there were those hours with nothing to do but wait for the phone to ring. So here's how I remember Daisy and those Saturday nights. The center is a dingy storefront squeezed between a cowboy bar and a sad little thrift store. Most of the front room is taken up by a long, scarred wooden desk where we sit and answer the crisis lines. Scattered on it were our telephones, binders, pens, and dirty ashtrays. The center has, of course, no air conditioning, and most of the windows don't open, so on this summer night, I feel trickles of sweat start under my arms and trace my ribs. Daisy's thin, faded red t-shirt shows off the roundness of her shoulders and her small breasts. There's a patch of sweat that makes a V down the front. She rocks back in her chair and purses her rosebud lips. We're talking about one of the calls I had earlier that evening. The smell of spilled beer seeps in from next door, and as always, the jukebox in the bar is the background to our conversation. So I'm doing active listening with the guy as hard as I can, I say. And he's got me hooked. Substance abuse issues, loss and grief, possible suicidal ideation. And then, I sigh, he says, "Can I ask you something?" And that's when I knew. "What color?" he says. Daisy snickers. "What color is your underwear?" Daisy and I chant together. I have to give it to him, I say. He got me fair and square. He did, Daisy says. She sits forward again, letting the front legs of the chair hit the floor, and leans close to me. "So, the thing I really want to know about this, hon." She picks up a pen in her rounded fingers and points it at me soberly, with concern. "What color is it?" I grab the call binder and whack her hard on the arm. Through the wall that we share with the bar, drunken male voices swell in chorus. "I'm a rhinestone cowboy." You all might remember that, maybe not. Thud as boots hit the wall on the other side. Daisy rocks way back in her chair again, lifts the heavy hair off her neck, and looks up at the ceiling. "Well, here it is another Saturday night," she says, "and I'm sitting by the phone, waiting for it to ring." Saturday nights.
So, how many stories do you have generated from sitting by that phone? That must have been a rich vein to mine, Sylvia.
There was a lot of stories. There were a lot of really strange things that happened. There was the guy that had the plutonium in his, he said he had plutonium in his car's, what you call that, the back of the car, in the trunk of his car. It turned out later he really did. This person that called up and was very, very, very concerned about the donut-shaped universe. But whatever. Anyway, lots of things.
Do we know for
Okay,
a
dear.
fact that is the universe donut shaped? I haven't heard that confirmed yet.
I think that was
I
a
know
theory
they've
back then. I don't think it's something I've heard anything about recently. It was
determined that it's if you combine everything, it's actually beige, and I think they've defined it as there's a B flat note that actually runs through the entire universe, but I've never heard that they've figured out that it was donut shaped. But
B flat,
of all the
B
interesting things,
B flat, and which part of the like B flat 3, 4?
well,
Which
I know I think it's very low. Yeah, I think it's
yeah, I was gonna say probably really,
yeah,
really low, minus something.
below the
Yeah,
audible range for us for sure.
yeah. Oh, that's wonderful though. I really like that it's B flat. I think that's terrific.
Well, if it's
Okay.
donuts, maybe the stars are the sprinkles.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, my dears, I think we're done. Are we done? Yeah. Okay.
Good to see you
So
all.
I had a couple of announcements as always. One is if you're able and feel like it, you can give us donations. Oh, I was supposed to put that in the chat, wasn't I? Okay, I'm going to put that in the chat as I speak. And if not, fine as well. But we do pretty much operate on donations. Let me put that chat in there. Link in the chat. I mean, okay. So the link is now in the chat. And the other things are our porch concert series for 2023 starts on Saturday, May 13th. It goes from 10 to 12:30. Registration, oh no, no, you don't have to, that's a whole other thing. The porch concert series, I wish I had the address here. I should have the address. It's at that church in St. John's. Are any of you even local?
It's on Charleston, right across from the James John School on
Yes,
Charleston.
thank you. Thank you. That is where it is.
So if
I
you're
don't know why
ever
we
in
don't.
St. John's in Portland, come on over. It's a beautiful little community.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. And our porch concert series is absolutely delightful. Okay. Again, if you're in St. John's, if you wanted to be in a choir, the St. John's Singers, registration is starting Monday, April 17th at the CPAC website, which is www.cathedralparkarts.org. And our next open mic is Saturday, April 20th at 7 p.m., same place. And you registered for it just like you always do. Okay.
So Sylvia, it's May 20th, right? Not April.
Saturday, May 20th. Did I say April?
You said
Anyway.
April. Just
I'm sorry. Saturday, May 20th at 7 p.m. Thank you. Thank you for catching that. Okay.
nice to see you all. Good luck with your show, Vicki. I think you're all set.